I'm Bruce Fummey, and I'm on a history tour of the Scottish-English border. Today, I'm setting off from our campsite in the picturesque English town of Wooler on a short journey to a battlefield. One of the less well-informed of our southern neighbours once quipped in the comment section, "You might have won Bannockburn, but we won Culloden. It's not the first leg, it's the final that counts." Something like that. Now, everyone that knows anything knows that Culloden wasn't a battle between Scots and English. In fact, technically Bannockburn, it doesn't matter. If he wanted a more accurate and, to be honest, desperately sad battle for his joke, today's might have been it. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. On the 8th of September 1513, just like me, an English army broke camp at Wooler. It was the first use of camper vans in medieval warfare. Actually, this battle would be the location of other firsts and lasts. Some historians say that it marked the end of the Middle Ages in the British Isles. It was the first time that there was a proper artillery exchange in the battlefield. In terms of numbers, it was the biggest ever battle between Scotland and England. It was the last time a British monarch was killed in battle. It was an end to chivalry. Although some might see traces of that in the Battle of Pinkie. The English moved north, but why were they here? Like, in their own country and that? I suppose we have to go back to the Treaty of Perpetual Peace between Scotland and England. When James IV married Margaret Tudor, this marriage of the thistle and rose meant that everything in the garden was, well, prickly, I guess. That Treaty of Perpetual Peace had been 11 years ago, and a lot had changed since then. The new English king, Henry VIII, has gone to war with France. He's also asserting overlordship of Scotland. Now, I'm sure his English supporters would say that all this was for the most noble of reasons. But of course, this is Scotland History Tours. Because they were the baddies. Border raving back and forth can't have helped matters on either side. But the key point was that James was stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock was that Treaty of Perpetual Peace that he'd signed with his wife's dad, Henry VII. And the hard place was the generations of treaties signed by numerous Scottish kings with the French. After frantic shuttle diplomacy to try and calm things down and avoid war, James concluded that chivalry demanded that he honour the French treaty and invade England. But he'd send them notification of the invasion a month in advance, just to be chivalrous. "No, are you mental? Creep up behind them and knock them in the head. Dinna tell them you're coming." But no. James very chivalrously besieged and bombarded Norham Castle on the English side of the River Tweed. Wark Castle, further up the river, and he was even more chivalrous at Ford Castle, where there was a lady in occupancy. With Henry at war in France, the Earl of Surrey led the English force from Wooler up the road that we came. What he saw must have horrified him. Camped on this hill was the biggest Scottish army that had ever taken the field. 42,000 Scots had crossed the border at Coldstream. Now, even with sickness and desertion, there were still well over 30,000 Scots looking down from here on a much smaller English force on the other side of the hill. What's more, they were well dug in this hill with marshland either side to protect their flanks. Surrey looked up and described this as a fortress. He had two choices: advance up the hill to certain defeat and death, or flee to certain humiliation. And knowing Henry VIII, maybe a wee bit of death as well. Which would you have chosen? Now, he sent a letter to James to say, look, how about you come down the hill and fight in the plain? And James said, no. Now, it turns out that one of the local English gentry was known as the Bastard Heron. The epithet bastard suggests that he was born out of wedlock. With the name Heron, he certainly wasn't delivered by a stork. The bastard Hearn had a plan. As the day went on, the Scots watched the English army head over in that direction towards Berwick-on-Tweed. Where were they going? Were the English short of rations and supplies? What were they up to? They camped out of sight up there to the northeast, and then at 5 o'clock in the morning of Friday the 9th of September, after a damp night on half rations and having to drink water from the streams because beer had run out, then Surrey's men came westwards. They'd taken the long road round and 10 miles north, over in that direction, just south of where it flowed into the River Tweed in the border, the River Till was spanned by the Twizel Bridge. The original bridge, now replaced by a modern one, had only been erected 2 years before this. Their aim was to cross the River Till and come back south to Branxton Hill over there that you can see, hopefully less than 2 miles in that direction. The English were heading for that high ground. Quickly, James had his men break camp here and head for that hill to the north. As the English came south, it all happened. It was now a race. Are you coming? The Scots got here first. Now, we were still in a commanding position. As we looked north, we still significantly outnumbered the English force. There were two things that weren't so good. First of all, whilst the English had small bore manoeuvrable cannon with the men to use it, we had brought massive siege cannon from Edinburgh Castle. That needed time and levelling to properly set it up and to organise it. And in the rush from that hill to this, there had been no time. So, when the back and forth of artillery started, our big guns firing that way were ineffective. Whereas the Scots were in 4 battles from left to right looking down the hill there, and they set off each in turn. The first battle, over on the left, marched down the hill in a silent, well-ordered unit. Now, that might seem strange given that it contained Highlanders and Borderers, the two areas that you might imagine as undisciplined clansmen. The armoured men in the front ranks made the English arrows ineffective, and they pushed the English back across that way. Surrey even had to send a rescue party of cavalry to rescue his son over there, as some of the English fled in that direction. It was when the second battle marched down that the second of the problems caused by moving to this hill became clear. You see, the Scots hadn't reconnoitred this battlefield, so it was only as the second battle reached the bottom of the hill there that they discovered how boggy and marshy it was. The French had supplied the Scots with 5-metre long pikes, which had proved devastating in continental Europe, but it needed training, discipline and suitable ground to use effectively. On dry ground and manoeuvrable conditions where they could operate as a unit, nae bother. But as the quagmire down there combined with a lack of training with equipment, the shorter English billhooks were much more effective, cutting down the Scots. So much so that a lot of the Scots threw away their long pointless poles and took to small arms of swords and axes, which just made things worse. If you had a long pointless pole, there was even less cohesion. But if you changed to sword and axe, the English billhooks had more reach. Then, for the third problem of the day, the Scots were fighting in the old style of noblemen leading from the front. That meant that they were less able to see what was going on down there in the field than the English counterparts. The third battle from the right went from this direction. That was led by James himself from this point. He said that he should put himself in the same danger that he asked of his men. Oh, very chivalrous, very noble, but it meant that he marched in the same quagmire that had faced that second battle. The fourth battle over there held back waiting for orders from James, who was stuck in the midst of the fighting. The first battle, led by Hamilton and Hume, having been successful, stood off as well. Border reivers, being notorious for holding back when fighting for nation rather than family name, Hume famously said, "The man does well this day who saves himself. We fought those who were opposed to us and beat them. Let our other companies do the same." In the centre here, James valiantly led his men in spite of the difficulties, and they fought their way to Surrey's bodyguard. But as successes elsewhere released English troops, they concentrated reinforcements in and around James's battle at the bottom of the hill here, with instructions that no prisoners were to be taken. Finally, James himself fell. His body was found surrounded by the corpses of his bodyguard, the archer's guard from the forest of Ettrick, which gives us the haunting lament, the flowers of the forest. Not just a lament for a king, but for the lives of the many that followed. This disaster was far worse than Culloden. Down there is Branksome Church. A lot of the church has been renewed and replaced, but there are still 12th century parts that would have been here when it was used as a field hospital and mortuary on the day. Some say that James's corpse was laid out here in the church before being taken south, although there are other versions that I relate in my video, The King Who Never Died. You're welcomed by these memorial doors using locally grown wood with carvings of English oak and Scots pine and a river appearing to symbolise unity. The flowers of the forest will have brought tears to the eyes of many at the graveside when Scots and English have fought together. Of course, it's difficult these days to say anything about unity or self-determination without it sounding political. Maybe, instead of the Bannockburn-Culloden football analogy that our commentator offered with the pub landlord joke at the start, we should remember that in rugby, even if you're on different teams in the field, we're still friends in the bar. I'd rather that than this. If you'd like to see another video on the Scottish-English border, then there's one coming up on screen now. In the meantime, ha' mi an dóchas go be lama alive. Cheerio and drasta.